Elder Ruth Orta, who will share with us some words.
Buenos días. Queremos primero, para empezar de la manera correcta, queremos presentar a una abuela de aquí, la abuela Ruth Orta. Ella es Hydra de aquí de las tierras Ohlone. Ella es Hydra del territorio extendido de Hydra de estas tierras Huichín, del pueblo Ohlone. La abuela Orta nos va a ofrecer una bendición para que este evento de 2 días nos salga pues como queremos que salga. Entonces le agradecemos mucho por recibirnos en su tierra. Pues le damos la palabra.
I don't know if you can hear me without the microphone. Can you?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't use that. I'm totally against the era that we live in now because of all the little machines that they carry around in their hands. The kids do not have the connection to us. And I feel that the Creator doesn't want us to live this way. We're supposed to communicate with each other. And that's what's wrong with the world today. There's no communication between human to human. So that's the reason why Creator gave me this voice. So I think that's all I need. I don't need one of those things. So this is who I am. And I am old. I'll be 86 August 20th of this year. I have had 7 children. This is the baby of my 17 grandchildren. Her mommy passed in 2015. She had one of the ugliest diseases in the world, which is diabetes. And then it went into kidney failure, and that was the beginning of the end. So I inherited her and her brother. My daughter had 3 children. So I had 7 children, 5 daughters, 2 sons. The 2 sons were unfortunately 10 years apart, so they were in between all the girls. Poor kids, but they grew up to be good guys. I had 17 grandkids. I have 38 great-grandkids, and I have 12 great-greats. So I have 5 generations. And I do speak Spanish, but I was raised with English. My stepfather was from Guadalajara, Jalisco, and he taught me how to speak Spanish when I was 6 years old. And then my husband I married, his parents were from Chihuahua. So my in-laws spoke Spanish. And I worked with the general public all my life, so Spanish was really, really helpful. Because no matter what anybody says, it's an international language and everybody can understand because that comes to the Italian, the French, the Filipino people even have Spanish. But unfortunately, growing up, we had to speak English. So that was what was spoken. I am a native from my mom's side. My mom was born in 1902 in Pleasanton, California. That's where our people were from. We were from the Bay Area, Alameda County. I've been in Alameda County my entire 86 years. My mom was born in 1902. My grandma, who was full-blooded native from both sides, she was born in 1863. And she lived in Pleasanton all her full entire life. We never left our homeland. We never were acknowledged by the United States of America's government. My mother wasn't considered a citizen of California when they became a citizen until 1924. And my mom was shorter than me, very vocal, and so am I. I'll say what I feel and what I believe with my common sense. My mother was educated in the orphanage in Mission San Jose when she was a little girl, because her native mom died in the early part of the 1900s. We estimated between 1904 and 1905. And then her father, who was a red-headed Spaniard like she described him her whole entire life, and all my life I knew that. He was a red-headed Spaniard from Costa Rica. So she was the first generation in my family that had non-native in her family. So then I was the second generation. Today you can't find that generation, hardly the second generation, they're all gone. My mom was the youngest of her family. She didn't get married until she was older. She was 29 when she had her first child. My brother, she was 32 when she had me. That wasn't the normal for a Native woman, and she had 8 children. We were all born in Alameda County, except for my oldest brother. He was born in Brentwood and Contra Costa, but the rest of us were all born here in Alameda County. So this part of the world is my homeland, and I am happy to have had people come from all over the world, because my mom taught us to love everyone with respect and honor them, because the Creator created all of us. So I had a very, very wise, very loving, very hardworking woman to raise me my whole entire life. She died when I was 50 years old. She died in 1986. She was 84 years old. My stepdad, who was from Mexico, Guadalajara, he died in 2001. He was 95 years old. So I'm very fortunate to have my stepdad all my whole entire life. So I welcome everybody. I am glad that you're here today. I have never been to this building. This is my first time, and I've been here all my life. And I worked all my life. I worked 54 years. I got married when I was 16. My husband was 17, going on 18, and we both worked. We worked in the fields, in the canneries, in the packing sheds, in assembly lines, warehouses, and I ended up in my last job for 21 years, Santa Clara Valley Transportation, which is VTA. I operated their buses, and then I operated the light rail trains, the oldest person in light rail at that time, and a woman and a native from this part of the world. I worked for 21 years for VTA, and I worked for the rail for 14 years. So I'm a working lady. I have all my faculties yet. I'm very healthy. I don't live on prescriptions, and I always tell the doctor, if I need to take a pill for that, I'm not taking it. You tell me what I have to do with that. So I'm very fortunate that I'm healthy. My eyesight's still good. My brain is still active. I'm still the sassiest woman that ever lived. I'll say what I want to who I want. And if they want to listen to me, fine. If they don't, oh well, I'll go on to the next one. And I let everybody know that this is my part of the world on my mother. I honor my mother every single day. My dad died when I was 5, so I didn't get to be raised by my gringo dad. He was Scotch-Irish. So he was a gringo. So this is who I am. And welcome. I don't do any honoring in the traditional old way, but it comes from my native side, deep in my heart. I don't do it in an organized religion way because they're all screwed up. And so, you know, this is who I am. So I bless everybody. Have a great, how many days are you going to be here? 2 days. You have a great 2 days here. Enjoy yourself. And this is your land here. It's like I belong to your land down in Mexico and South America. And all this part of the world is ours. So welcome to my brothers and sisters from south of the border. And you have a great day. Creator's going to take care of you. Taken care of me my whole entire life. And so this is what I give to you. And this is my blessing for you. Thank you.
Bueno, yo voy a hablar español y el compañero José va a hablar inglés. Pues muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Vamos a empezar ahorita invitando a todos los compañeros y compañeras de Grietas, que somos los que organizamos este evento, a que pasen para acá para que por favor todos conozcan nuestras caras, nuestros nombres.
Hi everyone, we're going to get started with the program shortly, but before we do that, we would like to have everyone from Grietas to come up to the front so we can introduce ourselves to our company. Thank you.
My name is Daisy. I'm from Colectiva Semillas in New York City, coming from New York, but I'm from Jalisco.
De aquí en colectivo es Grietas del Norte.
Where are you from?
Ohio.
Sophie, same collective, also Ohio.
Hi, my name is Maritza. I'm from the Eagle Condor Liberation Front. I'm from Anaheim.
Buenos días, coalición aquí. Mi nombre es Enrique y yo soy de México y también pues ahora México en San Diego.
Hello everybody, my name is Imo Luna. I'm from a collective called Hormigas Autónomas y Rebeldes and we're from San Diego.
Hola a todos, my name is Christian. I'm from LA, Los Angeles, and I'm from Eagle Condor Liberation Front.
Hola, Roberto Martínez, with the Chiapas Support Committee here in Oakland.
Buenos días, Rosa María, from Comunidad de Land at the border of Tijuana, San Diego, Colectivo Raíces Sin Fronteras.
Hi, my name is Jose Plasencia. I'm from Mexico, but I live here in Oakland. I'm with the Chiapas Support Committee, also based here in Oakland.
Hi everyone, my name is Kiki. I'm from Oxnard, California, and I'm part of Sexta Grietas del Norte, and I also belong to a collective called Semillero 805.
Hello everyone, my name is Liz. I am from Community Territory, and I collaborate with Hormigas Autónomas y Rebeldes.
Hi everyone, Roberto. My mother's side we come from Huirarica territory. My father's side we come from Mountain territory, border of Chiapas and Guatemala, but currently live in Cumiay territory in San Diego. Also, Hormigas Autónomas y Rebeldes.
Hi y'all, my name is Hema. I'm from Eagle Condor Liberation Front, LA, Tonga Territory, and Sexta.
And my name is Carolina Dutton. I'm part of the Chiapas Support Committee, based here in Oakland and also in Ohlone territory, and also I'm part of Sexta Grietas del Norte.
Well, oh my God, I'm so excited to have you all here. Estoy bien emocionada de que estén aquí, que estamos empezando el día, que va a estar lleno de un montón de cosas que vamos a hacer, que vamos a escuchar, que vamos a compartir. Porque antes que nada queremos decir de que este es nuestro evento de todos, no es el evento de Grietas. Esto lo estamos construyendo y lo vamos a construir todos juntos. Vamos a compartir hoy la palabra. Todos vamos a compartir, vamos a escuchar y esperemos que mañana cuando cerremos este evento estemos pues mucho más enriquecidos de conocimiento, de ganas de luchar, de pues seguir compartiendo con todos y por formar una colectividad enorme.
We're about to start our workshop section. Bear with me, thank you. This is also the therapy for me on social anxiety. We're gonna get started here shortly with the workshops, and we just wanted to, this is not our event. This is our event, and we hope that there's a lot of rich and fruitful conversation that is going to emerge out of this process, and that by the end of Sunday, when we finish, we've all gotten to know each other or some of the folks that are here, because I know there's a lot of us, and that we've made some new relationships, some new friendships, and linked up in some way, shape, or form that will continue to give us the opportunity to create spaces to continue dialogue like the one that we're going to have over the next 2 days.
Ok, so, pues entonces ahorita vamos a empezar ahora sí con las actividades fuertes. Bueno, no que el decir no fuera fuerte, pero esto es pues ya vamos entrándole a algo que para escribir algo que está para acá, ¿no? Vamos a empezar con un grupo de compañeros de Sexta Grietas del Norte que va a compartirnos pues cómo empezó, en qué estamos y qué sigue de aquí. Entonces pues invitamos a los compañeros, compañeras que van a participar en el panel que por favor pasen aquí a la mesa.
We would like to ask the first group of members of Grietas del Norte that are going to be participating on the first panel that will be sharing who Grietas del Norte is and the work that we're building is. Thank you.
Good morning again, everyone. So,
we also just want to reference, antes que empiece, that we have a doctor in the house. So if there's any, and she's raising her hand, Daisy, our compañera from New York. So if there's any concerns or anything, please check with her. And there's a station in the back. We do have a wash station. Just FYI.
Queremos avisarles que tenemos a una doctora que está aquí con nosotros y acaba de levantar la mano Daisy por si hay esa necesidad, y fue capacitada en Cuba, y si necesitan igual lavarse las manos, pueden hacerlo allá atrás. Okay. Buenos días otra vez a todos. Mi nombre es Naira y yo voy a ser la intérprete de inglés a español y de español a inglés. So good morning everybody. My name is Naira and I will be your interpreter today from Spanish to English and English to Spanish. Entonces si aún no han recogido un equipo aquí atrás, pueden hacerlo. El compañero que está alzando las manos. So if you haven't picked up an equipment set, you can do so right now over here in the back. Y justo después de mi anuncio podemos prender los aparatos. Cuando alguien esté hablando en el idioma que no entienden, le pueden subir arriba, en la esquinita tiene para subirle, y cuando alguien esté hablando el idioma que entienden, le pueden bajar. So I'm going to begin interpreting right when this panel begins. So whenever you are hearing, you're hearing a voice in a language that you don't understand, you can turn up the volume on your headset. And then when you're hearing a voice a language that you do understand, you can turn it down. Si tienen problema con su equipo, pueden levantar la mano y unos de nosotros les podemos ayudar o le podemos intercambiar el equipo. If you have problems with your headset, raise your hand and one of us can come and help you with that or exchange it. Les voy a pedir a todos, particularmente a los panelistas y cualquier otra persona que les toque hablar, que por favor, hablen a un paso moderado, o sea, no muy rápido, y también en voz alta. Si yo necesito que alcen la voz, les voy a hacer esta signa. Si necesito que hablen más lento, les voy a hacer esta signa. Y si ustedes me ven que estoy haciendo esta signa y los que están hablando no me pelan, por favor ayúdenme y avísenles, ¿ok? So I'm going to ask particularly panelists, but anybody who's speaking, to please speak at a slow, moderate pace and a loud, clear voice. If I need you to speak up, I'll make this sign. If I need you to slow down, I'll make this sign. And if you see me doing that as an interpreter and the speaker doesn't see me, help me out and make those signs so that they get it and I can interpret everything. I think that's it. Si es posible que ustedes puedan interpretar por sí mismos, háganlo con que digan el mensaje completo. sin omitir nada. So if it is possible for you to interpret whatever it is that you say, please do so and try to get as much of the message as you can without omitting. Okay? Muchas gracias.
Okay, well, good morning everyone again. I'm going to begin by just giving a super quick short history of how we began as a network, as Grietas, what brought us together. And in many ways, obviously it all began in 1492. No, but on a more serious note, we got together after, not too long after the 2016 election. By March, the Zapatistas on March 17 put out a communique. And in that communique, they began by expressing that, in reference to what was going on in the States with the election here, they said something, and I'm just going to paraphrase this communique. It's a much longer communique. I encourage folks to check it out, March 17, 2017. They called it the first of many, or the first of several, and primero de varios. But in that communique, they share a story, and they say, over the years since 1994, when the uprising in Chiapas began, you all in the north helped us out in many ways. You were a lifeline with support, resources, and so on. But now, given what's been happening in your part of the world, seeing what you're now confronting, we feel obliged to return that support. But what do we have? We don't have much. We can't send cattle. We can't send fruit or vegetables. But we have coffee. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you coffee. And so, in essence, what they did is they went to all the five caracoles, their juntas de buen gobiernos, their autonomous municipalities, and from all these various communities, among the coffee-producing families, each family donated 1 kilo. They then went to all the non-coffee-producing families, and each of those donated 65 pesos, which for them, both a kilo and the pesos is a big deal. With those monies, they then went and bought yet more coffee from coffee-producing families. Right? And in there already you start seeing the lessons and the stories, right? The lessons that they're offering to us of how they're stimulating their own local economies. And upon getting more coffee, they ended up with close to 5,000 kilos of coffee. They then, so the story goes in the communique, that they then went to another compa who had a coffee grinder and a coffee roaster. And they started the process of roasting and grinding, and not too much far into it, that grinding machine, toasting machine, broke. And one of the compas said, el capitalismo! But the Zapatistas said, no, compa. The problem here is not capitalismo. The problem here is us. And that we did not do the proper maintenance to that machine. And in that story, right, there's a story about the internal relationships within organizations and between organizations. So how did they resolve it? They went back to the campos. They went to the people who had livestock. They got animal fat from that to grease the machines. They came back. They went and got somebody who was a mechanic who had that skill set, and brought it back to that lady with the grinder, and together, bringing these various different sectors, right? Doing that internal maintenance work between the different sectors, if you will, different collectives, different parts of our community. They did that work of fixing that machine, grinding the coffee, which ultimately resulted in a bit over 3,000 kilos of coffee. And that coffee was then eventually, there was meetings with compas who had long existing relationships going back to the 90s about how do we get this coffee up to the U.S. Eventually that coffee did make its way to Tijuana. Compas from Tijuana, Sextas and San Diego Sextas, then made it across the border, but we can't talk too much about that part. But the last part I'll say about this is that in terms of the coffee itself, this was all donated, no strings attached. And they said the only thing we asked is that wherever you send this coffee, which, by the way, I should specify, in their communique, this coffee, they say, we're sending this coffee so that it could support you in doing work, supporting those who are persecuted and separated by walls, so that you could support migrants, refugees, and all displaced people and indigenous peoples. This is the purpose of the coffee. And so over the course of various months, it took a long time, it took us 4 months to get that coffee across, but eventually it made its way throughout the U.S. And others will share perhaps a little bit more about that. This coffee became the basis through which we then started solidifying or re-solidifying our own networks, that previous networks from the Sexta. And the last thing they said, all we ask is that whether you sell the coffee to fundraise, whether you just give it away at events, during your events, as a way to build community, all we ever ask is that you tell the story of the coffee itself, right? Which ultimately is that story about that internal maintenance work that we have to do amongst ourselves. And we say that if it gets too complicated and you want a simple way for everyone to understand, then all we have to offer at the end of the communique with these 2 words, fuck Trump.
That wasn't the communique.
Some people do identify us coffee and ask, where can I get some more? I don't know how many emails we get. Where do we get more coffee? Well, we do have some coffee here from this current cosecha, and it's from the Caracol de Morelia, and this can raise your hand. So that money does come from there, and the first batch that was sent to us also came from the same Caracoles, and they have a distributor there. So if you want this cosecha's coffee, we have it. So I guess just to add more to what Roberto shared is that why is this network still here? Why was it able to? Why wasn't there one before? And that was the big question that we had as Sexta, because a lot of people that are here are familiar with Aunque Campaña, and it's a big campaign, and there was a lot of excitement, a lot of collectives that were formed. But a lot of people in the U.S., there's at least 6 prominent U.S. Sexta collectives that people identify with or know. Some of them become nonprofits. Some of them are here, and also part of the network. But the question is, why wasn't there a network to support this transportation of coffee to the U.S.? There was none. And these 6, and I'm not doing this to criticize, I'm just being able to show the reality of the struggle and why this network was created in the first place. And what we realized is that with all the connections of direct lines, you could say, with the EC, with the money and the resources and the connections, how can you get this coffee across the border? None of them couldn't do it on their own. They didn't know how to do it. So they have to rely on building a relationship with other Sexta groups that were irrelevant. There are people, individual little collectives. We were just a collective of 7 people. So it created this relationships, like, we don't know you. And I said, well, we've been here since La Otra. Just because we're not, our name is not mainstream doesn't mean that we haven't been doing the work. And I can tell you right now, in the U.S., there's at least thousands of small collectives that are adherentes, and they're still in the system, and they've still been doing the work, de la chamba, of creating economy. So the question is, why has those collectives,
Why has it been very close and not grown? Why is it those collectors not accessible to other communities, to other people? And the reality comes down to there hasn't been a trust of network and openness to be able to share that information. So this, you can call it a lucky coincidence, but this coffee came from a campaign. It's called the Global Campaign Against the Walls of Capital, against neoliberalism. And this campaign was from the Zapatistas, really to highlight and sending this coffee was not just to support the migrants and displaced, but also who is still in assistance, who is still the Sexta, and to basically activate them, wake up, let's connect, let's network, let's continue to do this work of building and not just stay in our own little corners in the world and just keep it to ourselves. So in our eyes, from our perspective, we thought that was the understanding. We need to not just do solidarity work. You know, that is a priority. Yes, we need to be able to continue to support the assistance of the Zapatistas and the Sikh and their movement. But at the same time, what is it that we're doing here that we have not been doing? Why is it that we're still struggling with just the basic human rights here of being able to afford rent, to be able to pay for our bills, to have a job? Why is it that we haven't faced our struggles as Sexta here in the U.S.? You know? So how is it that we can continue to do solidarity and not do that work here in the U.S.? And we're struggling. And people have to save up a lot of money just to even afford to go to the Encuentro. And when you go to the Encuentro, there are a lot of white people. You know? Where are the other people that can't afford to buy? The tickets in Chiapas are extremely expensive. And we've been going there every year, you know? So the question came, why isn't there more collaboration here in the U.S. with the Sextas? And how to activate that? So that's why we're here. We're here to be able to open that door for other groups to make this accessible, to be able to know the Sextas of what the work is happening in Chiapas with the Sikh, and to reaffirm our commitment and support, and that the chamba that's happening with those 25 years of existence de la Zeta, they've been able to do it for 25 years. There's children born in these caracoles, that's all they know is that world. What have we done in 25 years? So that is the big question here, is to do this call for us to be able to, let's connect those connections, those resources. What is it that everybody has so we can be able to build a network, or people to be inspired to create their own networks, but at least to identify each other, to know where we're at, to be able to share those resources, and to know, you know, I'm no longer alone. There's so many collectors in California alone, but there's many in Ohio, in New York, and Texas, and we need to be able to identify and know who they are. So at least we have a place to go to for support. So I think I kind of went a little out of the history of Grietas, but it hasn't been easy organizing the last 3 years as a network, because many of us have our different political platforms, different agendas, and a lot of people have come and left. But something that has grounded us as Grietas is that we need to be able to survive. We need to do our own survival. We need to be able to build those relationships with the people of these lands. We need to be able to also take care of ourselves, and at the same time be attentive of what's happening in Mexico and all around the world. And we need to be able to have a much more collective response to these things as Sexta. And what does Sexta mean? I think we're going to go through those tables. But through this network, we were able to be very successful and created 2 campaigns. And I'm going to have Carolina share about one of those campaigns and highlight what that means. But there is at least a few members in this crowd that came from Mexico. They're our honored guests. They're from the Congreso Nacional Indígena, the National Indigenous Congress. What does that mean? Why are they here? And why is it that we must support and walk along with them?
So, the Zapatistas are amazing organizers. They're the most amazing organizers I've ever met. And they organized themselves. They organized themselves for 10 years clandestinely and had an armed uprising, and then by then they were organized enough to be able to create autonomy and have it, and take land that they live autonomously on for the last 26 years. And then, besides that, they organized us. I mean, that was really a strategy of having us organize ourselves. This call for having this call for creating networks. And in the second Escuelita, they told us the story of how they organized clandestinely, and they told it to us, and they hadn't told that story before with all those details. They told it to us because it was an encouragement, because that was the end of the lessons, was organize yourselves. And the other thing that they helped organize was the indigenous people of Mexico, and still is. They made this call to create the National Indigenous Congress, which was created in 1996. So, and in that Congress, I represented many different groups of indigenous people from all over Mexico, and they have been meeting and having assemblies and talking about their common struggles with each other for, I guess it's maybe 24 years now. And but what happened in 2016 was they realized, and the Zapatistas realized, that a storm was coming. It had already even hit. And that there needed to be something different done. That instead of just talking and sharing with each other about the different mining projects, the mega projects, the ways that people are being displaced, the ways that people are being murdered and disappeared when they struggle for their rights, they decided they needed to take the offensive, and they formed an indigenous government council, and the idea was to really reach out, both to all of Mexico, and then the Indigenous Government Council, the CNI, created chose an indigenous woman who still spoke her language, who had been in the struggle for many years, to be the vocera, or the spokesperson, and to be on the ballot for president of Mexico, even though they had no intention of taking power, and didn't want to be part of that system that comes from above. But it was to bring the issues to Mexico, to the people of Mexico. And because those issues are hidden in the media, obviously. So Marichui was chosen to be the vocera, and there are concejales and concejalas that were chosen by the different communities that are part of the CNI to be part of this Indigenous Government Council, and also to reach out to the north and to all other parts of the world. And so one of the things that, since we've been organized around the coffee and the art, which I don't know if anybody talked about the art yet. Yeah. Well, actually, that piece, and that piece. The Zapatistas also sent us art along with the coffee to display and to use to spread their word. Not to sell, but to share. And so that the Sexta also, our network also organized around that. And so now I got a little lost. around the SIG. Yeah, so the other thing that we were asked to do was to work with the National Indigenous Congress and the SIG. And the SIG, and we've got in connection with the international a commission of the SIG that was, Mario Luna was the person who was in charge of relationships with North America. And so it was suggested that we do a tour and various concejalas were going to come on this tour. A lot of people couldn't get visas or things happened that we were not able to come. But the tour did happen, and I can't even remember what, was it 2 years ago now? 2017, and it
January
2018, and it divided in two parts. I believe that Bettina went to the East Coast, and Bettina is here with us, and she is a concejala from Juchitán, Oaxaca, and she is going to share with us the struggle there in Oaxaca, later today. And and Mario Luna came to the West Coast, and maybe some of you were here when Mario Luna came to speak here at the Omni. He also was in San Francisco speaking with various organizations at MUA's office and many other, and San Diego, Los Angeles, and I don't know where else, but the whole idea of us organizing, of them asking us to organize this was to make connections with struggles here, and particularly with indigenous struggles here. And another tour is in the works. We have to, it has to be planned when it might happen, but I think one of the main goals is to work with indigenous people, both indigenous people from Mexico or anywhere south of the border, and indigenous people from this country or north of the border. Yeah. So I think maybe that's enough for now.
I'll just add one or two quick points in that when the Hydra, the first tour happened, there was a lot of buzz around Marichui running for president, but they made it a point to say she's not running as an individual, but as a spokesperson of this council that at the time was like 72 representatives. And because we can't put 72 names on the ballot, we put Marichui. But when it translated to the tour on this side, they kept getting a lot of requests for visits from Marichui. And they said something very important to us. They said, if any collective wants Marichui to visit, tell them not to even invite us, because they already missed the point. It's not about Marichui, but the council. And so part of what we did, the work we took up after the coffee was to continue the circulation of this art, which has been making its way through only California, unfortunately, but we are trying to get it to other parts, and then to take on this work with the CNI. First we took that tour, but the last thing also would be that if we reflect on the last 25 years of Zapatismo, the reality is that many people here in the States only engage the Zapatistas and only have like engagement maybe up through La Otra, but not everybody's necessarily as up to date with what's been happening, especially over the last 5 years, or only fragments here and there. So ultimately part of bringing this network together and trying to grow it and expanding and including the purpose of this Encuentro here today is precisely to do that internal maintenance work amongst ourselves, amongst the various different collectives, organizations, individuals, or whatever you call yourselves, right, as the compas say, to do that work here so that we're no longer just, collectives, individuals, orgs, organizing on our own, but more connected in our own local struggles alongside that solidarity work.
And I guess just to add reference, because I'm not sure if people know what the CNI is. Can somebody raise their hand if they do not know what a CNI is? Okay. So the CNI, just to a reference, is they've been organizing also alongside with the EC for the last 20 or 40 years, but they're like the house of the indigenous people in Mexico. So it's like they're indigenous communities, and they've been organizing themselves for over 24 years, and they've been having encuentros in every part of Mexico to be able to organize themselves. Because as you know, in Mexico there's been a lot of repression, a lot of displacement of communities, of lands, and so it was a need of resistance among the indigenous people in Mexico. So they formed the CNI, the House of the Indigenous People. In 2016, like Carolina said, they decided to do a council, kind of do a political move of organization, of coordination, to be able to amplify the voice of the indigenous people that they've been suffering, and because now they're being prosecuted, they're being killed, they're being disappeared, and there's literally every day there's something new that happens with the CNI. And I think that's something that people are very disconnected. They just think of ECLN, but they don't are aware of the struggle of the CNI, of the indigenous people. And the ECLN, there was a proposal, a comunicado que se llama 300, Park Creek, and I recommend everybody to read it because that's what's relevant right now.
There's a little book that we printed of it, if you want to.
They're for sale in the back. So in this comunicado, the ECLN says, we are integrated as part of the CNI. We're not separated. We're integrated. We're also indigenous people integrated within the ECLN. So it's basically also amplifying that voice of the CNI. And then the ECLN put this communicate. Not only are we integrated of the CNI, but we are basically walking with the same struggle. So their struggle is our struggle, and we want the international community, we want the national community, we want all these collectives to work and support the CNI, because that's what's relevant and present right now. Yes, support the ECLN, but by supporting the ECLN, you're also supporting the CNI. And I think that there has to be more information in the U.S. about the CNI, the struggles, because there's hundreds and hundreds of indigenous communities that are integrated and part of the CNI. And we're very honored to have a few of them here to share their struggle of resistance and prosecution and why they're still surviving, and kind of like an outcry of support and help, because it's something that's very relevant today. But in that communique, the ECLN presents 4 things. And one of them basically proposing to las redes de resistencia en rebeldía in the U.S. or in the international community is saying, reaffirm our commitment with the CNI and CIG, because that's who we are. That's one point. The second point is be transparent in the communication of presence of who we are, and that's what we're trying to do with this encounter. Be able to identify the networks that are in assistance in the U.S. and the international community, and communicate and share the information so you're not replicating the same work. If somebody's already doing translation of some communiques, know who's doing that communication. Network with other organizations, and don't be more smart and intelligent to be able to connect with one another and to organize these things. Another point that they present is do your own evaluations and analysis of your own struggles and your own locations. So do the work of internal organizing, create your own projects of autonomy, and be able to do that work within your own communities. Don't come and support us, build your own communities and your support systems wherever you are. And then the last point is this proposal of creating your own networks of resistance and rebellion. So we're not asking you to join Grietas, we're asking you to build your own support systems, connect with one another, and be able to at least identify and know each other. And with that, the last thing is that this last proposal, this last year, there was a huge gathering in Chiapas with the support system of the Sexta Internacional. And there is a talk about being able to open the SIC, the Consejo, the Comisión, to be amplified and allow other struggles to come in. So it's not only indigenous. But something that the Senate East has said is that we will not open our doors to have a council of different struggles
our Indigenous Council is just Indigenous, but we can create another council that amplifies and connects all these other struggles, because we need to continue to support and protect the roots of this resistance, be able to protect the identity and the culture and stories of why we're still here. And that I am. Disculpen. Gracias.
Thank you, compañeros, for sharing the story of Grietas.